Conversations in Color. Brought to you in part by the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. Freddi Williams Evans. And Joyce Jackson, Ph.D. Cross-Cultural Research and Educational Outreach. The building of Congo Square Connection. Online educational site.
Before we begin our talk with Freddi Williams Evans and Dr. Joyce M. Jackson, I'd first like to invite our partners up. This series of Conversations in Color is being held in partnership with New Orleans Airlift and the Third Eye Theater, Interdisciplinary and Improvisational Performance Company. And I'd like to welcome Monique Moss and Delaney Martin of those organizations to come up and tell you a little bit about the larger project, Liberation Vibrations, that this talk is a part of. So I'll turn it over.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Monique Moss. I am Artistic Director of Third Eye Theater, Interdisciplinary and Improvisational Performance Company. I'm a native New Orleanian. I've been working in my community for some decades as an artist, as an arts educator, a researcher, choreographer. Delaney and I thought that we would just share with you a little bit of context as to how this particular panel or series came about. I met Delaney and New Orleans Airlift in, let's just say, some years ago, okay? Pre-COVID, y'all know what that means. And it was because she reached out to me to potentially work with her organization on a project that was fantastic, and I'm gonna let her talk about that, but she invited me because the work was about connections between New Orleans and the Congo. And she had been informed that I'd been traveling a little bit, doing research on the history and culture of New Orleans in different spaces in the diaspora. And so, having traveled to the Congo with two master artists, one named Papatito Sompa, who is in the audience. I would like for him to stand. And his brother, Jean-Claude Biza Sompa. And so I traveled to the Congo with them, not just as a researcher, but as someone who genuinely was answering a call. And I call it a call because you know a call when you feel a call. And all you can do is call it a call. So with the research that I had been doing, and I also worked with the collection at Suno. They have one of the largest collections of Congolese artifacts in the South. I finished a master's degree in museum studies there and had been working on looking at that collection. And some of what I put into my writing was about the slit drum. The slit drum is, from what I understand, a drum of healing, obviously an instrument of communication, as most drums are. But in particular, this drum really called to me because the work that we were interested in doing was centered around the arts and healing potential. And so I brought in one of my friends, Jay Renee, who was a fantastic artist, and she came down and we went into the collection together, and I wanted her to begin trying to find inspiration from the collection in order to build these visual installations. And so the two of us have been working on that. Now, as a matter of fact, just another connection with the Congo with me is that recently in 2018, director Jason Barry premiered his film City of a Million Dreams. Dr. Michael White, who is sitting in the front row here, you can raise your hand, is one of the protagonists in that film. And the film essentially is about funerary practices in New Orleans and connections to Congo Square. And so when we talk about the history of Congo Square, right away in contemporary times, we think about Miss Freddi Evans, okay? You can't talk about studying Congo Square without looking at her work. And so the connections started to become very clear about Congo Square and the Kingdom of Congo for me, because thanks to Papa Tito Sampa, we had been sharing conversations about the histories of these two places, New Orleans and the Congo. And the commonality that popped up front and center was what we call here in New Orleans the bambula, but what Papa Tito's clarified in the Kingdom of Congo is called bambula. And so, as you know, in New Orleans, the bambula, that rhythm that is played, that is so quintessential to Mardi Gras music, brass band music. What about the dance? Does anyone here know how to dance the bambula? Right. There's very little information about what the dance is. And so that is where I started working with the two brothers, connecting the research. And then here comes Delaney. Do you want to do a project that has to do with the Congo? Absolutely.
Well, let's briefly speak to my connection to the Congo. It doesn't exist. It only exists through what I've learned from this adopted city of mine, New Orleans. And so when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, of all weird sources, invited my organization to go to Congo, it posed some questions. But first, who am I? I'm an artist. I am the co-founder of the artist-driven organization, New Orleans Airlift. We create projects that are deeply collaborative across the city and around the world. But we focus on New Orleans, and we are most known for Music Box Village. It's a long-running project of ours. It's an artist-built village of musical houses, performable platforms. We hold concerts, we commission amazing musicians, and we build an ever-growing village of musical houses built by many hands in harmony. And so this becomes a metaphor for many things, not just a place to make music, right? And so when this very strange opportunity presented itself to our transplant white organization, we did know that we had to do soul searching. We did some of that with colleagues and friends in the city, like Ron Bichet, who's out here, who is part of a committee to help a white transplant organization navigate this work around Congo, and ultimately led to the invitation for Monique and also Dr. Kara Olage of the Amistad Research Center to be our co-leaders. And this is where this project started. And of course, we pursued Congo as one of the themes, and it deeply resonates through it. But there's many other themes, because the project also became about our lands after the prompting by Monique to look into it. We discovered, as we learned last week at the lecture here that was focused on the 1811 slave rebellion, that the man whose plantation it started on and who would play a savage role in suppressing it then moved to the land that Music Box is on. So it's open to a kind of amazing Pandora's box. And at this point, the project has many facets. These panels are one of them, and we're so proud to partner with Amistad as an organization that prioritizes collaboration and uses it as our driving force. The partnership with these two institutions is just incredible for us. And this work that we're going to present is really, I would say, a point of great depth in the work we have done to date. And I'm very thankful to Monique and her programs and her ideas, and Amistad for going on this journey with us. The journey, you want to say? I was going to say the journey will have another panel next week, and then it will not end, but it will have a culminating moment at Music Box Village on October 8th, where we will be revealing a new musical house inspired by this project and a performance directed by Monique. It involves many people, including Indigenous elders, Miss Jenny Lester, and Mr. Ivy Billiot. It's really become a deep and sprawling project, and we thank you for being here tonight, and we hope you will come to Music Box on October 8th.
And so to top it off, just making sure that we understand the connection between New Orleans Airlift, myself, and Amistad Research Center. Dr. Kara Arledge, in actuality, had come onto the project with myself at the same time. And as a great historian and curator, she was instrumental in sharing archival materials housed at the Amistad Research Center that directly related to the history and culture of the Congo. And so then we started sharing in those materials and ideas and making some more dot connections. And then Kara Arledge had the wherewithal and the belief in Papatitos and I working with her full board and her full staff to talk about an ancient African practice called Mbongi Circle. I'm speaking those words because of Papatito Sanfa. And so we started looking at how the practice of democratic engagement could actually happen within organizations in the Western world. Looking at them, however, through the lens of ancient African eyes. And so Amistad Research Center stands as the first organization to go through that process. And since then, New Orleans Airlift has gone through it about 5 times with different partners, including their board, their faculty, collaborators, patrons. And so we give thanks to everyone who trusted in that process and is allowing it to come to life here in New Orleans. And with that, I will pass the mic.
Really has been amazing to see these connections come to fruit throughout this entire process. But tonight we're very fortunate to have 2 wonderful scholars join us tonight to talk a little bit about that history of Congo Square and the ongoing engagement with that history in the public. We'd like to welcome to the stage Freddi Williams Evans, who is an author, independent scholar, and arts education consultant. She's internationally recognized for her scholarship on Congo Square, and her book, Congo Square, African Roots in New Orleans, was the first comprehensive study of the location, and it received the 2012 Louisiana Humanities Book of the Year Award. Her research and advocacy influenced the New Orleans City Council ordinance, which changed the name Beauregard Square, named after Confederate General P.G.T. Beauregard in 1893, to Congo Square in 2011. Joining her is Dr. Joyce M. Jackson, who's the first woman and person of color to chair the Department of Geography and Anthropology at Louisiana State University. She also holds the James J. Parsons Endowed Professorship, and she's the former director of the African and African American Studies program at LSU. Dr. Jackson earned her PhD from Indiana University Bloomington, where I was also fortunate to receive my degree. Received that degree in folklore ethnomusicology, and her core research centers on African and African diaspora performance-centered ritual studies, including the Black Masking Indians and the Baptist Easter Rock in Louisiana, carnivalesque identities and community sustainability in Trinidad and Haiti, and women's healing rituals of the Libo ethnic group in the northwest section of Senegal. She's authored many scholarly works, including Life in the Village, a cultural memory of Fausenville community, and has curated numerous art and historical exhibitions. Dr. Jackson was recently honored with the 2021-2022 Lifetime Contributions to the Humanities Award from the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. So with a talk that is sponsored by the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities, I can't think of 2 better scholars and award winners to join this evening. Please give them a hand.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see all your faces, and it's nice to be in the Crescent City again. I have a lot of experiences here, actually born here in New Orleans, and I've lived here several times as an adult, but I'm in Baton Rouge. And I must say that it's really a delight to be here with Freddi Evans. We've been knowing each other for years and had various times that we've worked together in various different places. But what I would like to say, just to start us off, is looking at her as an expert on Congo Square. She was like God sent to me, you might say, because at LSU, I'm in the Department of Geography and Anthropology, and I implemented most of the courses that I'm teaching there. And so in my course on the diaspora, it's called Folklore of the African Diaspora. I start with the transatlantic slave trade and then move on up, and then, of course, moving into New Orleans with the first enslaved Africans that were brought in from the Senegambia area in the 1700s, 1720s, 1730s. And so when I move in, then I'm looking, okay, what next? It was very difficult to find information when I first implemented the course. And so it took me a while to, find an article here, an article there, basically dealing with Congo Square. And so when Freddi's book came along, and I knew she had been working when I've been anxiously waiting on it. And so it came along, it was 2011, and it was just God sent. And so I used her book along with, some other references and citations, articles and things, but it went in depth in some of the areas that I really needed for that course. So just wanted to start there to say that it was a God sent to me. But to see that she's developing a website to sort of complement the book, I look at it as a compliment. And she invited me to just be a consultant on it with her. And so that has been a really wonderful experience to see where she has taken it, since her book. And so I'm just going to start by asking, I'm sort of the moderator today, so I'm going to ask Freddi, why did you decide to develop a website?
That's a good question.
I know a lot, and I know it's a lot of reasons, but just give us some. I know for one thing, to help us teachers who are really looking for more information in one book.
Yes.
But other than that,
But first of all, good evening to everyone. Thank you for coming, because like Chris said, there's so many events going on tonight. I also like to thank the Amistad for allowing me this opportunity to launch. This is a soft launch, so let's remember when we look at the website that we still have a lot to complete on it, but I really appreciate this opportunity. And thank you for actually critiquing my manuscript before it became a book and guiding me with your questions, like what about this, and what about the forms for the music, what forms were there, all of those questions that helped me to develop it into what it is now, and then to also serve as a consultant for the website. So it was during the first year of COVID when I was away, I almost call it an exile for a whole year. I started thinking about the need to have information about Congo Square online, to digitize it, as so many efforts were being made to do that across the country. And the years before that, though, I saw that there was no class, no course, no curriculum, no seminar, no symposium, K through 12th grade, even the college level on Congo Square. So those two reasons were the main reasons that led me to, again, consult people like you and Kalamu Yasalam and the other list of advisors that I have on the website. What should this look like? What should I do it? How should I proceed? What should it entail? And that took a lot of thought, because I did not want to reproduce a book. I could not put all of that information on. I didn't want it to be on, but I wanted to be more like a teaser, and then provide resources so that teachers, the general public, culture bearers, other scholars could then go and conduct their own research and develop new thoughts, new ideas, make new connections. And that's why the word is there, connection, Congo Square Connection. So that was really the impetus in the beginning for designing this website.
And how did you come up with the themes that you did? I mean, there were several themes, and I know the tech techie people talk about search engine optimization. And I, listening to people that actually work on websites and the technical aspect of it. And I know they're looking for certain words that are really very, very important to the entire website. So how did you come up with your themes or certain words that that you use throughout the website?
So one way is to talk to people who knew about this, because I am technically challenged. So I had the information, I had the data, I had the content, but I had to collaborate with people who knew how to produce it, how to create what you're talking about. So are you mentioning the keywords that I needed to look for?
Yes.
So one keyword that kept coming up in my conversations with the different advisors, is what I call the list of people, is community. Congo Square is a community phenomenon. It is about people coming together, collaboration. And so I had to figure out, how would I engage, or how would I present the community in this work? Couldn't be about me. As a matter of fact, I really fought with all of the developers about putting my name or my picture, or my bio, or any place on the website. Because I really did want it to be neutral, but of course they had to say, you have to authenticate this, you have to put some responsibility behind it, so people would know who designed it. But, so community was very important. Another word was collaboration that kept coming to my mind, because you'll see part of Kalamu's interview today. You won't see all of it, because again, this is just a teaser. I want you to see the rest of it. But in the rest of his interview, he talks about collaboration and how this is a communal effort, this is a joint effort. And so I wanted to then figure out who would be my collaborators on this. What role would they play? When would I engage them as collaborators? How much would they have an input on? Will I give them more control or less control? Exactly that. So collaboration was another word that kept coming up in the discussions. Another word was model. Where are the models for this? Because most humanities labs are located at universities, and I'm not. So how do I then navigate this path, as a lone person out there? Or should it be a lone effort? Should I have a corporation, not a corporation, but a foundation? So all of those questions came up, and they still are coming up. I haven't resolved everything, but I knew that I needed to move forward and get some work done. And so this, again, is a soft launch, and you guys are an exclusive audience tonight, so you will be the first to see it. It has not been advertised, although I must admit that some people have found it. And I have received comments, about the website and how much, it provides for people already.
Well, I've already showed it to my students, sorry. But they can give good feedback.
Yes,
and I know it's still in the making, and so they can really give some good feedback. But the other thing is, how did you bridge the gap between young adults and adults? I mean, younger people, because you said from K through 12, I know we start maybe in elementary school.
Yes.
But, so how do you do that? I mean, on a website of that caliber?
It is geared for general audiences. Although it's accessible to middle grade and high school students, it is definitely geared for teachers, educators, scholars, the community, general public. But there are resources for children. And so under education, you'll be able to see the education tab. There are lesson plans, links to lesson plans, links to websites for children or for students in classes. There are links to books that they would use, recordings, audio, visual recordings, videotapes. And so
Even field trips.
Yes, field trips, and primary and secondary resources. I made an effort to put those in lists of them and sites where people can have them easily accessible. As you mentioned, I think many times teachers don't pursue certain topics because they don't have the resources, they don't know where to find the information. So I wanted to really eliminate as a reason for them not including Congo Square in their curriculums. And I hope that eventually one of the things that could come out, there's so many possibilities for where this could go, but maybe there would be a collaboration of educators who would come together and actually create a curriculum that would be accessible to elementary, K through 12, grade students. So hopefully that is one of the things that
Yeah.
can come out of this.
Well, I also would like to mention your children's book. You have a children's book on Congo Square. So that's another resource, for younger kids.
Yes, I do have, that book is among the list of books. So it's not just one, but I have a book for young readers, middle graders. Actually, I have a copy right here, but I didn't bring this on purpose. So come Sunday, a young reader's history of Congo Square. And not only is the book listed, but also the teacher's guide, the educator's guide, that was created by teachers in charter schools, public schools here in New Orleans. Actually, those teachers used the manuscript content in their classes and provided feedback to me before the book was published. So I had it, so to speak, vetted by teachers before it was utilized, and before it was published, I should say.
That's wonderful. When we say we have a party and nobody comes, so when we build a phenomenal website and nobody goes to it, or you might go to it and look through it one time, how do you keep people coming back? I mean, do you have maybe an idea of doing a blog maybe once a month, or is that in the making? Just to keep people
Yes.
coming back. I mean, and sending it to other people and using it.
Yes. So I do plan to invite writers to submit work, and I will have 2 editors on the website who would suggest and bring in ideas. But for instance, there was a young lady who studied in New Orleans this summer from Haiti. She was on some kind of fellowship, the French government. And I talked to her about writing her experiences, what happened, what collaborations she saw, because she came to Congo Square a couple of times and even presented a final performance at the Mint. I wasn't able to attend. But people like that I will invite, and not just in New Orleans, but people throughout the diaspora, African diaspora, who would like to make connections and contribute to information about the similarities that they see. So there will be ongoing content that would be new and relevant. For example, the interviews. You will see an example of one tonight, but those interviews will be ongoing. Not only will they be on the website, but we will also put clips of them on social media pages that would then drive people to the website. So there are ways that we plan to keep it new, fresh, and keep people coming and coming back.
That's good.
Yes.
I wanted to talk also about the whole concept of Congo Square, because we think that is unique to us in Louisiana. Well, that space is not really unique to us. I mean, there are other places in the diaspora that have a sacred space that the culture comes out, or you may say creolized cultures and traditions pop up. And, so it's not just us. I mean, we're great. We love our Congo Square, and, we think it's unique, and it is. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the other places globally that are very similar to what we have here in New Orleans?
Yes. I would like to even start locally first, well, in the United States first.
Okay.
And then, so there is a location in Philadelphia called Washington Square, which is in the historic district, a couple of blocks from Independence Hall. That location was once called Congo Square. And there is even a marker there that mentions Congo Square, has it in there. And it was called that for many of the same reasons that our Congo Square is called Congo Square. So we not only see similar gathering places, but we also see the name before, in another situation. But I have been in touch with
Do you have any idea of if it was called that because of the same reason here?
Yes, because many of the gatherers were from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and they gathered there on Sunday afternoons, very similar to what happened here in New Orleans. They traded, they danced, they communed. It was a place of recreation and socialization, same reason. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so there are places throughout the African diaspora. When we were in Haiti, we found a location near the river, near the ocean, near the waterfront, where people gathered. And I was able to get a little snippet of an interview from one of the elders in the community who talked about that was a gathering place for them on Sunday afternoons. So my goal then is to get a culture bearer in that area to provide an interview that would go on so that we can make these connections, because
And that was in Jacmel.
Yes, it was in
That's in
Jacmel,
Jacmel.
yes. And so that is one of the ways that I think we'll be able to see Congo Square in a global perspective, and not just the 2-point-something acres of land that we see now within Armstrong Park. Yes.
Do you think that as people do the tour, a lot of tourists come here and they do the tours, is there, I know you have the app for a lot of the spaces in New Orleans.
markers.
And has that been put on is the app on the website?
Oh, definitely. There is a tab under education for historical markers. And there's a tab within itself for the slave trade app. And I hope people are aware of that, because that, again, did not get a lot of publicity. But I was part of the committee to create this self-guided tour that will take people on locations in the French Quarter, basically, where enslaved people were sold, or that is significant to enslaved people. So it'll take them through the markers, the historical markers. There's a marker that commemorates the transatlantic slave trade, a marker that commemorates the domestic slave trade, and there are markers on buildings where sales actually took place. So this app not only takes visitors, and you actually can sit in your house, you don't have to take the tour, but you can take the tour, you can stop when you want and pick it back up. But it also is narrated by professional actors and actresses. So it's not like a boring talk, monotone. It's very, very exciting. And there are passages from slave narratives, people who were sold down the river, people who were brought into New Orleans from different locations. And then there are also different historical moments or ideas that are captured and placed into context. Mm-hmm. So it's called the New Orleans Slave Trade app for those who have not seen it. You can download it on your phone, on your computer. Again, you can stay at home, or you can actually take the tour.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the beautiful things today is the fact that it is so active still in Congo Square. So much goes on there all the time. And will there be videos of, videos integrated within the website of some of the rituals? Because they still have the the drum circle
Yes.
on Sundays.
Yes.
And I think that would be really nice to put on there so someone in, I don't know, Haiti could see it,
Yes. So that is something that is in the making. Right now, we have a very small photo gallery, and believe it or not, the photos were taken by me. Until I get some photographs from professional photographers, and there are several in this room, who allow me to have the copyright, privileges to show those. But that would be true for videos as well. I would need to get permission to use them. And as this develops, I will be able to acquire those. But yes, we will be able to show some of those videos. But currently, there are a lot of links to videos and links to different YouTube, yes. And actually, the Congo Square Connection website will have a YouTube channel. So there will be content, particularly the interviews on the channel.
And another thing that I'm thinking about to make it so interactive and to keep people coming back is a calendar. Because there are so many things that are going on in New Orleans, but even if it's a calendar just for Congo Square, things are happening all the time. So I was just wondering if there's a possibility of having a calendar on the website.
Well, we haven't discussed, and I say we, people who I talked to about this, have not discussed a calendar, but I am in partnership with Congo Square Preservation Society. So whenever there is a flyer of an event that the society is producing, then that flyer will also be on the social media pages for the Congo Square Connection. So whatever the collaborators or partners send to me or I see available, I will definitely use that as a part of a way to promote activities that are related to Congo Square or Congo Square activities in general, or information about culture bearers, because one of the main goals is to promote culture bearers as well.
Now, we have a few pages that you wanted to see and sort of talk about a little bit.
I think the first page that I wanted to share was the purpose, the bullets that, yes, show the purpose for this. One is to perpetuate the history and culture of Congo Square in New Orleans, including its influence on indigenous culture and the culture bearers. So on the site, you'll be able to see under community, there's a tab that says community. Again, community is very important to this site. A list of culture bearers, and the list is not complete, it's ongoing, as well as a list of scholars, and that also is not complete, it's ongoing. But along with the list, their names, there will also be ways to contact them, because what I want and what I envision is, as educators create their curriculums, their lesson plans, they may want to bring in a dancer, they may want to bring in a speaker to talk about first-hand experiences or to provide a performance. And so these will be at the fingertips of the educators or the general public. It may not be an educator, maybe an organization. Most of those scholars and culture bearers who are listed will provide interviews. Those interviews will then, you'll see an example of them, they will then be rotated on social media pages. Not the full interviews, just teasers. And then they hopefully will draw people or send people to the website to see the full interviews and then to see other information as well. So again, promoting culture bearers, providing resources, we talked about this for educators, whether it's K through 12 or college level, and promoting the work of culture bearers and scholars, and then encouraging cross-cultural research and interdisciplinary and international collaborations. This is very important to me because on my interviews, or during my interviews, and I've conducted about 5 of them so far, I ask, what connections do you see? You've traveled, most of these people have traveled, internationally, repeatedly, and I continually ask, what connections do you see? And they make the connections, they've seen them all the time. Why can't we write about them? Why can't we actually act on them and develop them into even a conversation? Maybe the Congo Square Connection website could have a panel discussion. It could be virtual, where we could have a culture bearer in a different location, say in Cuba, in Haiti, in the Virgin Islands, Brazil, any place that has a similar relationship to what goes on in Congo Square, what went on in Congo Square, and talk about the commonalities and the similarities that existed. So I just hope that this could be a bridge to develop those kinds of collaborations, to forge that. And then the last one is to support the programs, again, that are going on in the city for culture bearers themselves or for organizations in general.
Talk a little bit more about the interviews. I know you said a few already, and what are you looking for in the interviews? Are you looking for more information to include with the website, or are you just looking for their accounts of what it means to them, or
Yes.
just what kind
Yes,
of
yes.
interviews are you?
That's a very good question. And I have actually 3 basic questions. And those questions are centered around their relationship with Congo Square as an influence on their work, or as inspiration or whatever, because I noticed that during the protest era, when there was an attempt to move City Hall to Congo Square, many people were like, what's the problem? Let's just move it here. Some people in the community did not understand the relationship that people in the community had to Congo Square, what it meant to them, the sacredness of it. And I said, they really don't get it. They don't know what influence this has on the work of many of the artists who are practicing in our city, whether they are dancers or musicians or writers. And so one of my questions is, how has the history and legacy of Congo Square influenced your work? What do you draw from it? What meaning does it hold for you? And hopefully this will help people who do not understand that help them to understand it, give them a better awareness of what it means to people who are out there every Sunday. Do you know there are people who are out there every Sunday?
Yeah.
Drumming and dancing. And, you know,
So tell us a little bit more about the protest, and when was it, and how effective was it? Evidently, it was effective. We still have Congo Square, right?
it was effective because there is not going to be City Hall on Congo Square. Now, what will be there and how it will develop has, yes, I agree. Yes. And there were many people in this room who were so instrumental in leading that effort. I see Dow Edwards, who was our representative from the Congo Square Preservation Society on the board. And there were organizations that came together. Again, the collective work, the cooperation, the collaboration, which is so important. It's community, it's about community. So, so now, no, there will not be City Hall at Congo Square in the Municipal Auditorium.
Okay, so can we hear just an excerpt from the interview, one of the interviews that you did?
Yes, we could do you want to look at the website first or the interview? Because I think the website is not.
Well, website first, then if you have that up first.
Okay, so here is the homepage. And I just have to say that community is switched with background. We're not going there. I just want to show that this is the menu across the top, but it goes from home, and we can scroll up, please, and you can see then the bullets that I just talked to you. This is the photo gallery that's here. Remember, these are my photographs that are in place now. Hopefully we'll get some more professional ones. You can go through them very quickly. We will have citations at the bottom as well for them. And there's one last one, okay? And then we can go to
So actually, I was talking, like, something like that would be nice to have a video.
a video of it, yes.
That ritual is going on.
Again, it's not a challenge, but it would require a professional look, and then I would have to get permission. So yes, we will have some of those. So if we go back then to actually we can go up or we can go down. Okay, let's go up, let's scroll up. I should say scroll down. Yes. All right, there you go. And so these are the bars. We can click there on history. That would be great. And so under history, you see 9 panels. Again, there's a panel on the protests and the resistance that we talked about. The international connections, okay? Now let's go back up, please, to history, to Native Americans. So I talked about collaborations. This is an example of a collaboration. This narrative was written by, if we go up, we can see the byline, Allison McQuarrie, who is of Native American heritage, and she is associated with the Bolbancha community. So I reached out to her to provide the narrative for that group because I want them to speak for themselves. I want them to feel a part of this. And there would be other collaborations like that as well. For instance, I've approached Denise Waldering at the Latin American Resource Center at Tulane. There is a wealth of information in their library that teachers could use but may not be aware of about the cultural practices and the people in Latin American countries that are related to what happened here in New Orleans and Congo Square and the cultural practices. So we will get together and decide how that will appear on this website. So those are the kinds of collaborations that we will make and connections that we will make through this website. Okay, we can go then to cultural practices. And there are several ways, of course, that you can access each of these pages. And you'll see the different cultural practices. So my challenge was not to put everything, but then what do you put? Because everything is important. You know? So under each one of these tabs, you will see, Dr. Michael White, do you see your picture there? You will see, under each one of these tabs, you will see maybe a paragraph or 2 at the most, but then you will see a list of books, articles, videotapes, whatever resources I could find that will allow the person to continue researching, to expand their knowledge on these areas. Another challenge, we talked about challenges briefly, but was to find images that are in public domain or that I could access the copyright to. So all of these are either from public domain, or I took the photographs, or I did manage to get permission from photographers like J.R. Thomas, who provided many of them for me. Okay? And so under each one, let's look at maybe musical instruments since we're here. Okay. And so here you have, in this case, there are 3 paragraphs, I guess, but I really tried to narrow down the content because I don't want people to just cut and paste and think that they have it all, you know. Okay. We can go to the next tab, education. Okay. And here's the slave trade app that I mentioned, historical markers. Again, this is not complete, but I do have a tab for visual artists and visual art. That would definitely have to be worked out because there's so many artists who receive inspiration, so many writers, musicians who even title their songs after Congo Square or about Congo Square. So that is something that is ongoing, that kind of input. Okay, the next tab. So let's skip interviews because actually that's out of place. What should be community is next, yes. Again, this is a work in process. And see, under community, you have the scholars, the culture bearers, Congo Square Preservation Society. Let's keep going. The Tom Dent Lecture Series, which I hope will come back, but that's sponsored by the Jazz and Heritage Foundation. And under community organizations, we can possibly click on that. So we have more organizations listed. And if we click on each one, we'll get their website. Okay. Okay. So many times when people say, oh, you're studying Congo Square, they think about the location, but I really want people to see that it's more than a location. You know, when you're studying Congo Square, it's even more than the gatherings that took place there because we have to look at the people, places, and practices that influenced those gatherings back in, the African diaspora, whether it was Haiti or whether it was Cuba, whether it was parts of Africa. And then we have to look at the practices that those gatherings influenced, which is right here now in New Orleans. So looking at Congo Square means looking at a really, really broad spectrum of circumstances, people and places and practices. It's not just one perspective or one diameter, so to speak. Okay, and then we can look at interviews. There's nothing there. We haven't loaded the interviews yet. We can look at background. So this is where I have information about me. This is what I fought against when I was there. And on down, we'll have the developers and the advisors. Okay? And the supporters and the contributors. Is that not coming up? Oh, yeah, they're coming up. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So now, you want to do one of
the interview? Yes. It's only part of Kalamu's interview. He was one of the first persons I interviewed, and I want to say this is not in the interview, but he was one of the inspirations for this website because he is my mentor, and I do consult him. Like, what do you think about this? What should I do it? And how should I do it? So you'll see the very first part of his interview.
Good morning, Kalamu. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Welcome to Congo Square Connection. Thank you for providing this interview for us. As I think about the years that I've known you and the work that you've covered just in those years is massive. You've held a lot of capacities, interacted with a lot of different organizations in our community. How do you define yourself and how do you describe the work that you do?
I define myself as a writer and former activist. I could say I'm still a cultural activist, but when I say activist, I mean in the political sense of getting involved in activities designed to confront the system to make change on behalf of Black people.
Wonderful. And how has the history and legacy of Congo Square influenced that work?
Congo Square is an example. I always say that in one of the poems I wrote, we don't know how, but somehow our people who were enslaved and our people who were nominally free, I say nominally free, convinced the oppressor to allow Black folk to get together on Sundays at Congo Square. One of the most interesting aspects of this, when I started researching Congo Square, and it's documented, the Spanish capitalists, shopkeepers, and various people who made money off of offering services, goods and services to people, they were very upset because Black people could buy and sell on Sundays and they could not. And they, as you well know from your research, they actively went after the governor to get change that they could not, sell on those days and so forth and so on. Many people do not realize that Congo Square was far more than singing and dancing, and that it was an opportunity for people to gather, to exchange information, to also practice certain activities that they could not do on a collective basis, but could only do individually wherever they were, shall we say, stationed. And that aspect is often overlooked when we talk about Congo Square, because the people who previously written about Congo Square are only concerned, quote unquote, about money, and use money as the defining element of what makes something significant. I think, on the other hand, that what was significant about Congo Square was our opportunity to get together on a mass level.
From different walks of life.
Different walks of life, from different locations, not just walks of life, but location. Because you could be a farmer working on a plantation, you could be a farmer working on your own little plot of land, and so forth and so on. Both of you were farmers, but that's two very different, how can we say, conditions.
Exactly. Wonderful. Thank you for that summary.
I think what the website represents is it really whets the appetite. People go there who may not even know anything about Congo Square, but after looking at that website, I'm sure they want to go and, and do more research on it. And so, and I had a couple of my students to say that. So I think it's going to be growing, and it's just a phenomenal resource. So we're going to open the questions up. You want to?
I hope they also come on Sundays to the gatherings. So we have to try and really feature that, really make it known somehow that is still going on. Yes.
Yeah, it's nice to have the videos for those who can't be there in person too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
Just a brief question. I've gotten into genealogy more lately, and I noted one of the presenters at, at a function I went to said, make sure that there's somebody else, either in the family or outside the family, who can pick it up after you're no longer around. So I wonder, do you have someone like that? Because this is this needs to be refreshed, when people find out more information.
Yes, I mentioned editors that I am engaging, and one of them is here. I've talked to already. Editors who I hope will do that, will carry it on, will assist at this point, and then want to maintain it or carry it on. We have to figure all of that out. But yes, I agree.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. Most people, I think about Congo Square as being this place, euphoria, of where the Africans had a chance to gather. But in having the conversation with you previously, you talked about it really wasn't that. It was more of a place of resilience, right? And how the Africans, it wasn't it was a day off as opposed to a free day, and how the Africans had a strong desire to preserve their culture from where they came from. And so with this website, it's another step of resiliency and preservation of that cultural aspect of Africa. Can you speak on the importance of preserving the cultural aspect of things that were brought into Congo Square and that's now in the city of New Orleans and throughout the world?
Yes. The word that comes to my mind when I heard you say that was resistance, that many people, including me, see it as a place of resistance as well as recreation and socialization, because it was here that people who resisted the European dances and the European musical styles, who wanted to hold on and preserve their traditions, were able to come and do so. Yeah. And so that resistance then has led to the indigenous practices that we see now, because they were able to maintain and hold on to their practices. A writer, local writer, Keith Metley, you may remember him, said it was like African seeds in American soil. And they were able to hold on to their traditions and then plant them, so that what we see now are the second line parades. So we see the second line dances, we see the music and the rhythmic patterns, the musical instruments of the Mardi Gras Indians, the chants, the rhythms. And so we see that carryover because of the resistance, because of the preservation that was able to happen there. Yes.
We have a question on this side.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening.
Do you have any plans to try to get this incorporated within the school system? Like from grammar school up into high school?
I haven't thought of that. There's so many possibilities out there. So, I'm open to discussing any ideas that people have. I'm at this point just trying to get it up. But I do want to hopefully have a curriculum developed so that it would be available to people in the high schools or in elementary schools, all grade levels. So that would be my hope, that would happen. And hopefully then they will adapt it or adopt it.
And my other observation is I am really kind of awestruck by this gathering here, even this presentation, because I think this goes to illustrate the sheer genius of the people in New Orleans, what this culture has contributed to this country. It's something else.
Thank you. I agree.
We'll go second row, and then we'll go to Dr. White.
Yeah, thanks. Ms. Evans.
Yes.
If there was a possibility of having a Congo Square Museum or a combination of a Congo Square Jazz Museum at the site of Municipal Auditorium, does that make sense to you? Would that be something that you think the people of New Orleans and the rest of the country would like to see?
It makes very good sense. And I think that they would appreciate it, because I think what comes to my mind is the Essence Festival, which is supposed to be what is the tagline? Yes, Culture Festival of Black Music. but there's never been a nod to Congo Square, which has provided the foundation, in so many words, for the music that we know as Black music. So I think that people just don't know. They're not educated, and I think that if anything goes there, there should be some way to isolate part of it to the history and legacy of Congo Square, and that is right there on Congo Square. I think to not include it would really be an insult.
Hey, Freddi. Hey. First of all, I want to thank you for your genius work. And Dr. Joyce, I want to thank you. I've known you for a long time. You've been doing some revolutionary things. Thank you for your work on the planet. I think something that can't be documented is the healing that people receive in Congo Square. It's something that we talk about, the drumming and the dancing, but many people come there for the unseen. The things that we cannot see are tangible or not tangible, or we can't put our hands on. Many people have received a deep healing there. Many people have gone there with a heavy heart and left lighthearted. Many people have even been healed of illnesses there. And I don't know of any way to document that, because, you know, how can you interview that, really, you know? But I think it's important to say that for as long as Congo Square has existed, many people, I'm sure, have gone there and received immeasurable healing through the dance, through the drum, through the actual earth that has come to hear their prayers. So I don't know how that could ever be documented, but I think it should be spoken of. And I want to say to your question, brother, that we've been talking on the Preservation Society board about the importance of a museum. It will come to pass. It's just a matter of when. But we are working earnestly, and we see the deep importance of it. So it's definitely on the table. It's just a matter of gathering the funds and finding a location for it. So I give thanks for the land that has healed me. So.
Thank you, Sula. I thank you for your interview. Sula has provided an interview for the Congo Square Connection website, and she mentions healing a lot. But I think another way is to write an article or an essay, and we can publish it on the website. I don't know if you noticed that at the conclusion of, no, you didn't see the conclusion of Kalama's interview, but at the conclusion of every interview, there is a citation, because I want people to receive credit for their intellectual property, for their wording. And so when someone also writes and we are able to publish it on the website, there would be a citation notation or reference, so that you will be credited, you will be acknowledged for your contributions. Yes.
Freddi, I have a big thank you to you and to you,
Dr. Jackson.
Dr. Jackson. But I have a question about the history, what happened at Congo Square on Sundays when groups gathered. Were they all, the Africans who came, were they just from the Congo, or was there a blending of people from other countries? And if so, is there some way we can highlight the fact that it is a gathering place where we can put down some of the differences we have and enjoy the excitement of being who we are, an African people, whether we're from, you know, Benin, the Congo, South Africa. Is there any history to that idea that I've just said? And is there some way that your website can kind of subtly emphasize how important that coming together is?
Yes. So under history, there is a tab that says people, and it talks about the people from different nations. I can't remember exactly if I mentioned all of the nations. I don't even know, we don't know all of them, but the ones that we do know of. And I see a way of adding something more contemporary to it. And this is what I even mentioned to Allison, who wrote about Bolbancha and the indigenous people, that we can say in that section, Bolbancha still lives, it still exists. You know, what is going on right now in the community, what is available to the public, if there is anything, or who to contact. Hopefully I can interview someone about what is happening in the community. But there are ways that we can extend it because Congo Square is, as I said before, still going on. It's not just the ground or the location or what happened back then. We need to really embrace it as something organic, something that still happens.
And I'd just like to add, there's a slave database by Gwendolyn Bidlow Hall that we can, look at because she's done a lot of work. As a matter of fact, she just passed a few weeks ago. But she's done a lot of work in looking at the groups that came in and when they came in to this area. So that colonial Africanisms in colonial Louisiana, and I'm pretty sure Freddi has it on the list. So that's a book that you can read. But she also has it was a DVD. I'm not sure what they put it
I don't
into
know
now.
how it looks.
But she had it. It was a slave database telling where they came from, what groups came, at what time, and I mean it's very
Detail.
very detailed. Yeah.
I think Dr. Michael White.
Yeah, first I'd like to thank Freddi Evans and Dr. Joyce Jackson for their continuing incredible, tremendous contributions to our culture and society. And second, I'd like to say that the young lady's comment about healing, I think, and looking at extensions beyond Congo Square are important. I think we might not be able to measure certain aspects of that, but there are some things that we can talk about, like, for example, how some of the musical traditions, jazz itself, the practice of jazz, the second line tradition, jazz funerals, the church parade tradition, that as it was doesn't exist anymore, but how those things are extensions and how those extensions of what came out of Congo Square and how they represent healing. And I think we can document some of that. And I think that's important. And I had a question for Freddi. The question is, is there a lot known about the Congo Square in Philadelphia? And like, for example, which years it ran, what was the music like there, and if it had any long-term effects on Philadelphia music beyond its existence?
Years ago, when I first researched this, there was I went through the Park Service because that is a public park now. And they were saying, oh, there's one man who knows, who you can talk to about that. I forgot his name, but I can find it in my papers. I hope he's still there. So he was the one who knew the most about it. I'm sure, hopefully it's been passed on, like you say, once you have this information, pass it on to someone else. So what I knew then, what I found out then was that I don't see the influence. He didn't have a lot, but he had the most information and research that anybody else has. So I'll see what I can find about that. I don't want to say no, but I don't think there was an awful lot. I did find a passage in a history book, I think it was like a book put out by the city or something like that. So there are small passages that I have found, but I have not found a book on their presence, African presence in that square.
What about descriptions? Like, they had people that came here and described the music, the dancing, and all this kind of stuff. But did they have that for that Congo Square in Philadelphia?
You're thinking about like eyewitness reports and things like that? I have not looked into that. So I will see what I can find. But that's quite possible that people stood around Congo Square observing and wrote about it the way they did here. That's quite possible. I'll see.
I would like to actually segue into any history about Congo Square in Philadelphia because Papa Tito Sompa, Papa Tito's, if you could just stand up, he is very well known on the jazz circuit in this country. He was the first artist to come to America and establish Congolese dance classes and music. And he has played with phenomenal musicians from the 60s on, from Pharoah Sanders to, Sun Ra, all of those, astral men. But I wanted to allow him a chance to speak on his understanding of Congo Square in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Just speak a little bit about your connection with the Congo Square in Philadelphia, how you came to understand that space.
Okay. It's very important for me and for the people here to know, America. And this Papa from New Orleans, I was 12 when Louis Armstrong came to the Congo. And that's where I learned about Congo Square, Angola, because he played for us. When he came from Ghana, came to the Congo, he played for the French Quarter. You call it French Quarter, we have French Quarter there too. So when he played for them the first day, the next day he played for us. And that's when after he played in a bunker. We went there with my money, because the bunker is not there anymore. You know where they store the airplane? That's where he played.
He's speaking about Louis Armstrong.
Satchmo. I know you're calling him with my French, you say Louis Armstrong, you say it differently. But I call him Satchmo, that's his nickname. So he played for us. After he played 3 tunes, then he stopped. And he started telling us about who he is, life over here. And that's when he said, my grandmother used to tell me we came from the Congo. So by him being there and playing for the Congolese, he couldn't believe that he was there. So he broke down. He cried all the room. We were kids. We looking at him like this, and everybody was crying. So my connection with Congo Square is very important. And when I found out, when I came to the United States, a lot of African people from this country, they don't know about the trip of Satchmo, because he made it a bridge. That connection is really, it got me a change. For me to know you is convenient. So I grant him that, and the Congolese people grant him that. He's the first one to make that connection. A lot of people didn't know about Congo Square until he said, me, I didn't read in the book, it's him. So I think the legacy left, we should continue. And that's why I like my money when she came, you know. So now two Americans go to the Congo, you all go to the English-speaking country. Right. So it's important to make a connection, because that legacy is the same legacy in Congo. We went every Sunday they play. In Congo, we went right by the marketplace. So this thing is not new. We always gather as people, get information. When she talk about the Mbongi, it's the same thing. Mbongi is to cleanse. And the people here, the elders, we should help that vision to make it that African people here know. Me, I call it this is a conservatory of African music in America. That's what I call it, New Orleans. So it's important. I think the work we're doing, my friend, is very important. Oh. And those of you who have an idea, put on paper. I usually tell the young people to talk to the grandma. Because these elders, if you don't ask them, they're not going to share. So you have to bug them. They like it because they say, what do you want to know? But they like it because you're asking. So thank you for the work, my wife. Thank you. That's it.
And Austin, the second part of this is I wanted to ask Freddi about, have you thought any more about the cultural exchange component of the website, perhaps featuring writings by international artists or scholars who may have vital information that helps us understand who we are and our spaces that we create that are sacred. And to the question about whether or not the folk that came into Congo Square or into New Orleans were all from the Congo, you know, we clearly know that that is not the case, and that there were over 50 different groups of people from the continent that came through here. But when you look at archival documents from the colonial period, you come to understand that there is a generic terminology that is ascribed to anyone who came from the continent. And oftentimes that descriptor is Congo. Not to say that oftentimes when that descriptor is used, it is not referring to someone who was actually from the Congo. But the point is that there were enslaved peoples who came from the east coast of Africa, the interior of and center of Africa, and traveled to the west coast of Africa to be disembarked. And so just because they disembarked on the Gold Coast does not mean that they were all from the Gold Coast. So my question, Freddi, is about the cultural connection with artists and scholars and writers who may be interested in contributing work to the website.
I welcome it. As a matter of fact, I'm asking for it. I actually talked to this young lady from Haiti who was here this summer to write up her thoughts and her connections that she saw her and send it to me. So yes, I welcome it. And what Monique said is very important. When we read literature from that era, we really have to cross-reference and read again to make sure that the word Congo is used the way we're thinking it's used, because it is used both ways, generically as well as specifically.
Just as a suggestion that you might want to put on the website is the Great Gathering of the Great Day in New Orleans photo.
Yes, thank you. I didn't think about that. It's wonderful. Thank you.
That was one of the greatest
So,
gatherings in Congo Square.
if you all are not aware of what he's talking about, would you talk to them a little bit more, since you were one of the photographers and leaders of that?
Carol Bebel and Chuck Sala, who just passed, had this great idea of doing a gathering of all black artists of all genres in one group photo as a takeoff on the Great Day in Harlem photo. But this was all black artists of all genres, and had this great idea of having this photo taken in Congo Square. And I was lead photographer. JR was there. He did the videography, and several other photographers did portraits and photos of different genres of of artists. So it was a beautiful day, and the camaraderie was outstanding. And I think it's important because that was one of the biggest gatherings in Congo Square that I know of. There's I think 208 artists of all genres there, and a lot of family gatherings were there at the same time.
Yes, that was.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your presentation. There's no doubt that the culture, the music, the art, the dance in Congo Square is the best, if not in the United States or the Western Hemisphere, but in the world. That's no doubt about that. There's one question that I do have concerning the interview with the gentleman, and there was one thing that he said that I have a question about. He said that Congo Square, during the transatlantic slave trade, and after the transatlantic slave trade ended, when the slaves, some of the free people of color, were able to exercise their rights in economics, in selling, buying, trading, or even talking about politics on a small scale. He said this happened one day a week. In any sense or regard, has Congo Square evolved? Not culturally, not in dance, in music, but as far as that one day when people were able to engage in economics, has Congo Square evolved from that? How does that look in the 21st century with economics? Because the video was kind of cut short, but and the guy, he said he was a political activist for a long time. And so I'm curious to know, was it a result to the evolution of economics of Congo Square? Did that have an impact on him retiring as a political activist?
I I don't know if he retired. I think he just shifted his focus. Kalam was an activist. He's an activist and will be always. I don't think he retired from it. Yes, slow down, right. He works tirelessly every day on projects. But the other question about, has it evolved? Does anybody want to give an opinion on that? Yes?
Yeah, I think it's evolved because you still see people in New Orleans selling stuff on the streets, at the second lines. It created, and that's why I say resilient earlier, right? People from the Congo Square experience, I think, learn how to be self-sufficient and try to do their best inside their means and become many entrepreneurs. And I think it still is here today. It follows the culture. One of the things that at Congo Square, with respect to the Mardi Gras Indians and second lines, we still make these libation stops, right? That brings economic opportunity throughout the community. When the Indians stop at a ballroom, they bring an economic opportunity to those ballrooms. When the second line stop at those different venues, they bring an economic opportunity. So that's that Congo Square experience still carrying on today, is the way I see it as the economics still continuing to thrive in the city of New Orleans and beyond.
I agree. Yeah. Are you finished?
I'm Big Chief Dow, the Timbuktu Warriors, cultural bearer in the city of New Orleans, activist following the footsteps of Kalamu E. Salam, who was a mentor for me when I was a little boy. And so, and then just continuing to spread the word about Congo Square. I'm a board member of the Congo Square Preservation Society, and just doing whatever I can to spread the word about the Congo Square, how much it's really influenced the music and other cultural genres throughout the city of New Orleans, thanks to the wonderful works of Dr. Freddi Evans, who wrote this wonderful book and gave us the information to be able to expand upon it.
Thank you, Dal.
I'd just like to also, add that we have to also remember that we had a very unique situation here as far as plantocracy was concerned. And many, well, I wouldn't say many of the planters, but some of the planters actually had spaces for their slaves for the enslaved people to grow produce. And so for themselves, as well as to sell in the marketplace in Congo Square. So that was very unique for the South. And, other plantations outside of Louisiana didn't do that. And so, and specifically for South Louisiana. So we have to remember that, the economy was working, even with the enslaved society at that early stage of the game, and just kind of continued.
I agree with both. I want to add something to what Dal said. We know that economic exchange was important in Congo Square. There were market women, there were vendors, even men selling in Congo Square. We think of market women, and we don't hear market men that much, but there were also men who were selling. And what happens now is that those vendors are now mobile. So you have ice chests on wheels, that pull behind the crowd. You have pickup trucks, that will stop here and then they'll catch the crowd, a couple of blocks down, a couple of streets over. So you do see the evolution of that continuing, the economic exchange.
Hi, Dr. Jackson. Thank you. Freddi Evans, thank you so much. It's a reflection first. I loved how you're so rooted in the history of Congo Square and citations and providing us with this great history, but how you define it as a community space that's kind of moving through time and space and connecting it to the present. And, I think Big Chief and others would have said amply today how, a second line sort of is a gathering space on Sundays, right? A perpetuation of that. And for me, when I first experienced a great site of resistance, joy, healing, so many things. And first question is, would you agree that the second line parades are sort of our Congo Sundays of today? And secondly, in your research and developing this website, would it be kind of exciting the way you were talking about places around the world that also have their Congo squares in different contexts to kind of look into sites of Black resistance, joy, healing, spaces that are exceptional, that are happening today beyond New Orleans and our second line, tradition?
Surely, that's what I plan to do. I've contacted scholars who are getting me in touch with culture bearers in Rio de Janeiro. There's a gathering place, the Wharf, that is theirs where they gathered on Sunday afternoons. Practices were very similar because people, many of them were of the Congo Angola heritage. And so Virgin Island, there was a place called Sunday Market Square. It was very similar to Congo Square, the gathering place here. So I will engage those people in interviews and so that we can see those connections.
Yeah, but also like contemporary expressions, like beyond our Sundays, you know? Are you aware of anything, you know, another, you know, not historical Congo squares, but contemporary sites? So it would be a cool road to pursue, because I think the way you talk about Congo Square as a space of community that kind of is moving through time, like to locate those in contemporary world could be really fascinating and inspiring, because what Congo Square is, right, is like a place of inspiration for so much of Black culture and resistance and healing to perpetuate itself, and to use your website to inspire that, you know, in other places is quite beautiful.
I could see connecting drum circles, because there are places that have drum circles in urban areas. Yeah. So I never thought about that, but that is a possibility. There's so many possibilities.
I'm Luther Gray. I just want to congratulate you, Freddi, for your amazing work. You are a true inspiration. And I've learned so much just from your books. And matter of fact, I'm kind of sweaty because I just came from Congo Square tonight. Okay. So it's hot out there. So anyway, I was just saying that, like, from your research and from, you know, from everyone in the room, Monique and Tito's, everyone in the room, we are the culture bearers of this movement. And when we think about Congo Square, it's more like Congo Square was not just a square, it was a plains. It was a big area as far as the indigenous people. That's where they came for the annual corn harvest rituals. They planted corn and things in this area. So I was just also, what's going on with the Municipal Auditorium and the successful movement that came about that stopped City Hall from coming there. I really see Armstrong Park, Congo Square, and that area as being a true root culture industry, so that the money doesn't stay downtown and in the French Quarter. It crosses Rampart Street into our community where the roots of all this culture exist. And your website is going to be very, very important that coming to fruition. So thank you very much, Freddi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say that when they say the Congo,
yes,
we write the Congo is K.
Yes.
The C is French. So I just want you guys to know.
Thank
That's
you.
what
Did
I
you all
told
get
Luther
what he
when
said?
I first got there? I told you K, not C.
Thank you, Papa Tito's.
Yeah.
The Congo is K. It's spelled with K, and the French changed it to the C.
Freddi, will you also share with us how you would cite the website? If we were to use any of what you're sharing with us in documentation.
Good question. Good question. I don't have that up there yet, but it's coming. Thank you so much.
Well, and I think I want to end by Freddi by saying you say that this is a work in progress, but that is already a tremendous website, both scholarly and very accessible. So we look forward to its continued growth in everyone. So please join me in giving another round of applause for our wonderful speakers tonight.